I mean, we've had this conversation, right? If I had come to you 6 months ago before going to record the skeleton of the songs in the studio, I could have changed the keys, but I somehow it didn't click for me that I had to come way ahead of time. I thought I would need to come to you for the recording, which was already too late if we think about it.
Welcome to the Monique on the Mic podcast. I'm Monique B. Thomas, and this is episode 19. Now today, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I'm doing an interview, but it's with an upcoming artist who is a current and former student of mine. And you know, we have all these wonderful conversations about things like revelations that she's had as a student, vocal registration, what that is, self-induced artistic pressure, time off from voice lessons, having a team around you that supports you, and so much more. I can't wait for you to check this out because I think you're going to find a lot of common points that might speak to you. Here we go. I'd like to welcome to the show Sandrine Crescini. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for accepting. You know, people are busy. I wanted to have you on the show because, you know, in class, we always have these wonderful conversations. And I'm like, you know what? Let me stop wasting this lady's time. And instead of talking, let's get this on a podcast because I think the discussions are things that other up-and-coming artists would love to know about. Mm-hmm. You know, the things that we deal with on a daily basis, you know, the ups, the downs, the inside outs, all of it. And we often start our classes by talking about these things. I thought, you know, our conversations sound like a podcast. Let's make it one.
I like that.
You know? So I know one thing that we were talking about in the last class, you're preparing to record, right? Mm-hmm. And so the recording process, it can be a little scary, yeah?
Scary and exciting, but especially when it's your debut album, it's unknown territory, right?
Yeah.
So how'd you prepare for it?
Yeah. It kind of, if you could think of it in the sense of it's like having a baby, you know, people tell you this and that. They don't tell you everything because there's things that...
Thank God.
Yeah, there's some things, if you knew, you probably wouldn't have those kids, you know what I mean? But there isn't any way to be 100% prepared, especially emotionally, but there are some things that we can do, you know, preparation, vocally, arrangement-wise, production-wise. There are things there that we can do to prepare. But, you know, it's kind of like you don't know what it's like to swim until you get in the water, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the topics that came up last session was registration. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be really cool for people listening if you could share what that is, because I pretended I knew, but in last class, I was introduced to the concept.
Yeah, you know what? Don't feel bad about that because the truth is a lot of people aren't talking about it. And I'll tell you why and why people aren't talking about it, and then I'll get to it. First of all, TikTok and short form videos has really changed the game as far as what singers are looking to do with their voices. Nowadays, people are interested in being amazing for 30-second sound bites. Yeah. Which means that, you know, you throw everything but the kitchen sink at your 30-second soundbite, and so it's amazing for 30 seconds, right? But that's not singing. That doesn't, you know, just because you could do 130-second sound bites and they could all be amazing, it still doesn't mean you know how to put a song together and that you can hold an hour and a half show. And so because we've got this sort of TikTok star thing going on and everybody wants to go viral doing these short form things, they're doing things with their voices that either A, they shouldn't be doing because they can't sustain, or it's not a complete picture of what singing is. In any case, a 30-second soundbite is not a complete picture. You can't get a complete picture of what really singing is in 30 seconds because you can avoid things that most people have to go through, like bridging. In 30 seconds, let's say all you're going to do is your high notes. But when you've got a song and you've got to start from the beginning and then you've got to build it up and go to the bridge and then you've got your ad-libs at the end, At some point, if that's a well-written song, you're going to have to go through bridging. So now let's get to registration. Oh, wait. Because singers themselves are not looking for that type of education, a lot of teachers, unfortunately, they're trying to pander to what students want. And I get it because, we need students in our studio. We need bodies. We need people to come in.
Fair
But
enough.
however, it is not up to students to dictate what good singing is. They're there to learn.
Agreed.
So as a teacher, it's important for us to say, no. I know you want to do your 30-second soundbite. And the work that we're going to do should also assure that you can sing well for your 30-second soundbite, but it should also assure that you can actually sing for an hour and a half and be able to sing the next day, right? Now, registration, it is where your voice sits, and this is a very individual thing. It's very individual. We talk about, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and within each of those voice types, if you will, you'll have a higher soprano and a lower soprano, a higher mezzo and a lower mezzo, etc., etc., etc. And that is not determined by the singer. That is the instrument. So let's say if we talk about violin, viola, cello, and bass, you are born one of those things. And in order to play that instrument right, and when I say play it right means it's going to be in tune. It's going to sound natural. You are respecting its registration. What winds up happening is, and I talked about this in my last newsletter on Wednesday, is that because we have a vocal identity that was formed usually when we're like teens, especially if we start singing young, we tend to think our voice is what we like to hear. So our favorite singer, we tend to emulate and imitate what they're doing, even though it might not be appropriate for our instrument. Let me give you an example. You could not tell me that I did not sound like Whitney Houston. You could not, okay? I would punch you in the mouth if you told me that I didn't sound like Whitney Houston. I had the high notes, you know. So here's where I think registration is going to be a little bit more understandable. It's not that you can't sing the notes. It's that they'll sound differently. So if you take, let's take a violin and let's take a cello. There is a range in which they both can play the same notes. The exact same notes.
Yeah.
But they will
don't
sound
the same.
No, they don't. No, they don't. And so while obviously, so I'm a high soprano on the lighter side, and Whitney was a mezzo, a lyric mezzo. We have some of the same notes in common, especially in our second bridge and going into head voice. But the sound that she had is much heavier than my sound. Now, I like her sound. I loved her sound. But it's not appropriate for my instrument to make those sounds. Yeah. If I make those sounds, I'm sacrificing my registration. In other words, when I make those sounds, the cost is I will be out of tune and I won't make the rest of my bridging properly. So there's always a trade-off when we don't respect the registration of our instrument, right? Now, people might say, well, how do I know what registration I'm supposed to have? You got to study with somebody. You're not going to know that on your own. But there are clues. I always had a high voice. Always, always, always. And if you hear me speak, while I have a little bit of lowness in there, I'm not a low voice. I mean, you can hear some people, some women will sound straight up like men. You're like, okay, they're probably, they most likely have a deeper instrument. Their voice just sits deeper. Yeah. Another way of looking at registration, and I'll use my voice as an example. When I'm singing through my range, let's say we get up. So this is E5. So this is what we would call second bridge or head voice for a female singer. When I get up here, some other females or women would start to feel like, oh my God, that's getting high. But for me, it still almost feels like the middle of my voice because my voice goes way higher than that.
Yeah.
And those are the kinds of things, once your voice gets some training, because you don't necessarily know somebody's tessiture or how it should registrate right away. Sometimes it takes a little time depending on what's going on in the voice. But I've always been a high voice. I just always have been. And then I sort of got off track. And then because I got off track, things were just not smooth. But again, if you hear me sing this, I'll sing it. Let me see. You can tell that note is not high for me.
Yeah.
You can tell there's more. It's not like I'm hitting a ceiling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And so as we work with your voice, you start to know that, hey, when I do these things right, the notes that I sang before that felt high no longer feel high.
Yeah.
Right? Things, when your voice is registered correctly, what's really high is at the end of your instrument, whatever that is, you know, right? So whatever that is. And so how I know sometimes if a note that's not that high feels high, I know I'm doing it wrong, or I know I'm not registering properly. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I think what's hitting home for me is, as we talk about registration, it's really coming back to who we are.
Oh,
And what
yeah.
instruments we have. And that's like a lifetime journey anyway, coming back to yourself.
Yeah.
But also when your voice is leading you to come back to yourself.
Yeah.
And going to another analogy, sometimes when you have curly hair, you wish they weren't curly, and vice versa, right? So
Yeah.
you're doing all those things to make sure you have what you wish you had, which is causing harm most of the
damage.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
exactly
fascinating.
It is fascinating because, this may sound a little woo-woo, but at the end of the day, it comes down to self-acceptance, like accepting who you are as you are. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that might need improvement, but just saying, hey, you know what? I am a dark-skinned black woman. I'm very short. I'll never be tall. I got a little meat on my bones. Now, while I could lose some weight, I'm never going to be, bone thin. That's just not my body composition. I have curly, kinky hair that I've grown to love because I didn't always love it because there weren't always the products that were necessary to make my hair, to bring out the beauty of my hair. They weren't available to me, or the know-how how to deal with my hair. That information wasn't available to me. It is now, and now I love my hair, But same with the voice, if we get back to the voice.
Exactly.
The sooner in our vocal journey we can understand what our voice is, what it's supposed to do, what it was meant to do, what it was designed to do by the creator or whatever you want to call it, if we can learn to accept that, and not even just accept it, but embrace it, then we will take it to a place that, it's just unimaginable. And so it's like when you think of the singers we love, and you'll always hear me mention, it's always going to be like a Whitney Houston or Aretha Franklin in the top because they are my tops, But can you imagine them not embracing their voice?
Yeah, it'd be dramatic.
It really would be. I mean, think of it. I think about this a lot when I think of Aretha Franklin because she had a particular upbringing where her father, who was a reverend, he housed many of the great gospel, soul, and jazz and blues acts that came through town. So she got to hear and sing with some of the greatest singers. And can you imagine if she would say to herself, well, I'm not Mahalia Jackson, so I might as well go sit down somewhere.
But don't we do that sometimes? I mean, if I look back at myself, I have a high voice, and I love deep voices, and I have an obsession with them. So I've been for years and years, I've been trying to go low. And I just wanted to sound like them. And I didn't want to stand out. That was another thing.
Oh.
And when you sing high, you automatically stand out. If you do harmonies, they will hear you. And I was like, nope, I'm not going there, so they won't hear me. I won't take that risk.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I've always felt that when people step into my studio to work on their voice, literally it is a way to heal yourself, but through the voice.
Yeah.
You're going to have to deal with parts of yourself that need work in order
Yep.
to actually sing the way you were meant to sing. And so, I'm not going to do that now, but you'd have to ask yourself, well, why wouldn't you want to stand out? What is it that makes you think that you don't deserve to stand out? Because, to be honest with you, if you're going to sing, you're literally making noise. You're
Yeah.
going to stand out just by, opening up your mouth. So, it's kind of like, all right, if you don't want to stand out, maybe you should have picked knitting. But you didn't. You know what I mean? You didn't.
Yep. Yeah.
Would you say that you feel like music chose you rather than you choosing it?
Yeah, for sure.
You see? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like it was. Yeah. It's. Of course, I chose it back, but it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music chose me first.
But it chose you first, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a call that you get, and it's like the call.
Yeah.
If you don't answer it, it's just going to keep ringing. It's not like a human that will. It's relentless.
And as you say, I could be knitting or painting or dancing, but no, I want to
still
sing.
call. Yeah, you want to sing. And so it's like, I also like to call it sort of being obedient to what the call is. Because I do feel spiritual in the fact that we all have a calling. And some of us have more than one. But when we don't answer that call, we are being disobedient, but we're robbing ourselves of the immense joy that we get from doing that thing, but we're also robbing the world. We're also robbing the world. Wow, I almost got a little emotional there because we tend to think of like, well, if I don't open up my voice and sing, who am I hurting? Well, you're hurting yourself. But you're also hurting the person. There might be one person out there that might need to hear the message that you have to say in only the way you could say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, for me personally, the motivation to get out of my comfort zone and share my arts.
Yeah.
But it costs.
Well.
And it brings joy. It's like this. Yeah.
It's a balance. But so you said getting out of your comfort zone costs you, but what's the cost of staying in your comfort zone? I think that bill is much higher.
Yeah. True.
I think that is much higher because, like, I get it. As artists, we tend to suffer from mental illness a lot more than other people who don't live through their art at all.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy because it's like we want things to be good enough to put out there.
Yeah.
But we could also go into perfectionism, and then it's never good enough. And we've got to have a point at which we're like, you know what, I'm putting it out there. Yeah. It's a balance to find.
And it's a hard line because after all, you want to be satisfied with what you're putting out. You want to be proud of it. But as you said, if you wait for it to be perfect, then it's never going to be done.
Yeah. And actually, perfect's never really the goal.
No.
It really is the process of making the art that changes you. You're a different person. Oh, I see a cat. You're a different person when you've finished a project.
True.
You are different.
I digged into the word perfection because I was really intrigued why we are so obsessed with the word. And if you look at some definitions, perfect is the fact of being whole.
Oh.
Interesting, right?
I never knew that.
Has nothing to do with our concept of perfection, which is something that is not even real.
Right. No. Because the truth is, you can always pick something apart. You could. It's like a magnifying glass. If you take it and you zoom in, eventually you're going to find a micro mini thing that doesn't matter to anybody. Nobody can hear it, but it's there.
Yeah.
And you'll pick it apart. But that's not the goal. The goal is to have something that's sound, not just sound like sonically, but it's stable and it has an effect on people.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things have clear imperfections. Yeah. And they still touch us.
And we still love them. Yeah. They move us.
Mm-hmm. They move us. They change us.
Because they're real. Yeah.
Because they're real. We can identify with them.
Yeah.
You know?
I want to come back to something about perfectionism because I told you last class so when we do our lip bubble, right? That's usually the first exercise we work with.
Right. Yes.
And I remember 10 years ago when I was taking my first lessons with you,
Was
I'd
it
have
10? Has it been 10 years?
I think it has
Oh my
almost 10
goodness.
years.
Wow.
I remember back then that I was so hard with myself, and even
Yeah.
like every lip bubble, if it was not executed perfectly, I'd be like very hard with myself
Yeah.
internally. You wouldn't know, but I was like,
Yeah.
you messed this up. No, next time you have to do better. And what it did, it really just discouraged me from continuing, because eventually I gave up and I stopped taking classes, and I kept singing in different places, but I
But
didn't
not the lip bubble.
no, no, and I didn't cultivate the joy, because right now I started taking class with you again this year, and I'm telling my husband all the time, it's my highlight of the week. I don't know,
Oh.
there's even our exercises, the technique, it brings so much joy, because it's just connecting with my instrument, it's connecting with
Yes.
who I am, right?
Yes.
And I'm making noise and I'm taking up space, and I'm letting myself off the hook, that I don't have to execute perfectly, which is a
Yeah.
huge win if you ask me.
That is huge.
But
Yes.
why I wanted to come back to this is, as you said before, when we're taking lessons and we're working on our voice, we're going to work on ourselves. It's
Yes.
just, this is happening. And sometimes if you're stuck, you have sometimes to take a step back and maybe go to therapy and do some work on yourself, so you can overcome those limiting beliefs that
That you have. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting because at the same time, singing lessons can be therapy. I am, however, not a therapist.
Yes.
You know, it can be therapeutic just because it is,
Yes.
but that is not the goal that I have, because I am not a therapist. I did not study to be a therapist, so I don't have the right to, to act as that role.
Yeah.
And in fact, sometimes I may say to certain students, listen, you actually need to go to therapy before I can actually work with you, because this is so blocked up.
Yeah.
That, there's not a whole lot I can do. And it depends. It really depends on where people are in their self
Yeah.
healing journey, because I think we all have something to heal at some point.
Always.
But some people are so blocked up that, you can't get any sound out of them. I'm like, you know what, this is above, not only is it above my pay grade, but it's outside of my scope of competency, so there was something else I wanted to say. The journey of learning how to sing has parts to it, and there's an order of operations. And it's not even just singing, it's anything. When you're learning something, the first part of your journey is literally just putting in reps. So,
Yep.
I go to the gym, so I speak in reps. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and I think everybody can understand that. When you're putting in reps, what are you actually doing? You're not yet changing your body. You're learning how to do the exercise properly so that you can engage the right muscles. And once you've done that consistently,
Yeah.
then and only then can muscle be built and changed.
Yeah.
So when you first start learning how to sing, you're putting in your reps. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be weird. It's going to be out of tune. It's going to be funky. It's going to be everything but Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson. It ain't going to be that. And that's the thing that people get discouraged about.
Yes.
For some reason, we get into this habit of comparing ourselves to people who have been at it for 20, 30 years. We come in, first day of class, well, I sing out of tune, and mine doesn't sound like Michael's. Hello? Michael started singing when he was 5. I mean, he had to be singing before that because he was recording when he was like 5. So he was singing in diapers.
Yeah.
And so we're so mean to ourselves with that.
Yeah.
So first stage is putting in those reps. We put those reps in. We learn how to do the exercise so that the exercise is beneficial.
That's it.
If we do the exercise wrong, it's not beneficial. So we actually have to learn how to practice. And I don't know about you, but I struggled learning how to practice. I struggled, okay? So hard, because nobody ever told me how to practice.
Yeah.
They would just say, here, practice this. I'm like, okay.
And
And
that's where it's so great to have a coach by your side, right?
yeah,
Because you have that feedback, in-time feedback.
yes, yes. And, really a coach is there because you don't know what you don't know. You have major blind spots. And
Mm-hmm.
not only do you have blind spots, you come in with biases. So, an example would be people come in and they're like, I'm like, all right, so what's your story? What's going on with you? What is it that you're here to learn? Well, I need to learn how to breathe. And I'm looking at them like, how old are you? Well, I'm 30. You've been breathing your whole life and you want me to teach you how to breathe? Really? Because everybody thinks that the major thing with singing is breathing, and that is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Have you and I
Mm-hmm.
ever done a breathing exercise?
Nope.
Not once. Now, that
Mm-mm.
doesn't mean we weren't using your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that that's one part of the equation that usually is already in place to a certain
Mm-hmm.
degree. And anything that mostly what needs to be corrected in your breathing will be corrected by working on the other muscles that we
Mm-hmm.
work on, which,
Yeah.
your vocal folds.
Yeah.
It is not breathing alone, it is the correlation and the negotiation, I would say, between vocal folds and your breathing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your exhale. So, people come in and they're like, if I don't address breathing, like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I'm like, wait, you came to me to teach you something you don't know, but you want to teach me how to teach you. You definitely need a coach. Because it's like, listen, no, I've been at this for a while. I've actually been teaching for 25 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And do I know everything? Nope. Do I know how to train a voice? Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. But I only say that because I've trained my own voice. I mean, well, I've worked with my coach and he's trained me and he's trained me to train voices. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a process. But we singers always want to do everything alone.
Yeah, true. There's like the glorification of the one man show, right? The person who did it all by themselves, but it's fake news.
It thank you, because that doesn't exist.
Nope.
It does. Listen, the
It's
people
not
that
fun. It's not true. Why do we keep trying?
yeah, why do we fake that funk? Like, all the stars that we see. Let's take a Kim Kardashian, right? And we're enthralled by her flawless beauty. She has a dream squad.
Mm-hmm.
She can afford to be flawless. She's
Yeah.
got somebody working on every facet of her look.
Yeah.
What she presents to us, she doesn't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't do it alone either, for so
Mm-hmm.
many reasons.
Yeah.
For We've got the blind spots. We've got teachers who have actually been where we're trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, when you get up that road, you're going to have to turn a quick right and then a quick left, or else you're going to fall off or whatever. That's what we're here for,
Yeah.
you know?
And for
But
me, what sold me to the idea of doing it together, because I've believed that lie that we have to do it all by ourselves.
mhm,
What sold me to the idea was it's more fun as well. We're
I
not
think so.
meant to do it alone,
Yeah,
and it's so much more fun when we're together and when we have help and supports. It's
yeah.
lighter.
It is. It's like, let's carry this load two at a
Yeah.
time rather than one at a time. You're right. It is
Mm-hmm.
a lot more fun. And to be honest with you, for me, it's fun because I just enjoy walking along this process with someone, because even though the principles of the voice are the same for every instrument,
Mm-hmm.
every instrument has to bridge, every instrument has to respect its own registration. However, what is different is how the individual human responds to the information I'm giving. That is where I have to get creative, because sometimes what technically should work doesn't, because maybe the student can't access what I'm trying to get them to access.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, okay, that was supposed to work and it didn't. We'll have to build something else until
Mm-hmm.
that thing develops. So it really is a collaboration, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
trust
It's
kind
a
of,
trust.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's why also when you start investing in your voice, you have to you need a mindset of, I'm here for the long term. I'm here to play this game for a long time. Because
Yeah.
even I used to work with you, or you used to work with me. I don't know how we used to work
We work
together
together. Yeah.
10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So there was a relationship that got built stone after stone. And then there were a few years where I did a lot of different things and
Mm-hmm.
we didn't work together. And
Mm-hmm.
now we started working again this year. And
Mm-hmm.
I see now we're end of March.
Mm-hmm.
The trust I have is in you is so much bigger than in January, because we
Right.
had to pick up, right?
Sure.
We had to start somehow again,
Mm-hmm.
even if there was already a foundation. And
Right.
so if you just go in for one or two classes, you're
Yeah.
not going to get the best out of it. Even if you're
No.
like, okay, I have an album to record, or I have a performance I want to be ready for,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a quick fix.
No, it's not. And even though, and I thank you for saying that, because I think that's where most students go wrong, is that they're thinking, well, they'll hear, oh, this teacher's a great teacher. And, they'll fix my voice in 2 lessons and that's it. It's like, no, this is not
Mm-hmm.
about fixing a voice. This is about developing and stabilizing a vocal behavior that belongs to you when you're no longer with the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, behaviors take time.
Yeah.
This takes a lot of time. And so it's always curious to me that people know that they have to invest in proper mics, they have to invest in the studio. And for some reason, their voice, which is the
Mm.
actual, that's the thing we're trying to showcase, is the last thing they invest in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how does that doesn't make sense to me. I find that very curious.
Yeah, indeed. I'm trying to think about it, because if you're an aspiring artist, you might even start going to the gym to build up stamina, to be
Mm-hmm.
physically in shape. So you're aware that it takes your entire body to sustain that kind of effort.
Yeah.
But you forget that your vocal cords are also muscle that needs work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you are literally learning to coordinate many, many muscles
Yeah.
to do some very intricate stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people come in, like my favorite, and I say my favorite, it's not my favorite, when people come in a day or two before their audition, and
Yeah.
I honestly would rather not see them.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to leave it to that last minute and just have one lesson before an audition, I'd prefer not to see you, and here's why. Because instead of helping to give you a good foundation, I'm faced with the dilemma of, how do I fix something in their voice without shaking their confidence?
Yep.
So that whatever they have that they can do well, they can still do well tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that I can maybe fix one little thing that they can actually hold on to, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't shake their confidence. And that's not how I like to work, because it's fleeting.
Yep.
This has to be developed and sustained over time. The singers that we know that have great careers, they have habits. They have a
Mm-hmm.
way of doing things, and they have an intimate knowledge of their voice that means that they're professional. That's what professionalism is,
Yeah.
And we don't have this kind of behavior in any other arena. We don't.
Yeah, I saw your video on Instagram, about the fact that if we want to, we can be vocal athletes, but if you want to call yourself an athlete, it takes a few different things, right?
Well, yeah, you have to train like one. And the truth is, most people are not athletes. They're just kind of, weekend warriors. It's like, okay, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go all out for this weekend.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing before, which means you have absolutely no change. Being a singer is a mindset,
Mm-hmm.
has a
Yeah.
mindset that comes with it. Being a professional singer,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a readiness that
Mm-hmm.
you have to have. I like to call it, what's the word I'm looking for? Accessibility. In other
Mm.
words, the thing I hear in my head has to
Yeah.
physically be accessible to me immediately.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's what makes me professional. If I have to look for it, it doesn't belong to me, and I can't exploit it. I can't use it. I can't, and not in a professional setting. Who's going to
Yeah.
wait for me to say, wait, I know the phrase, but give me a minute. I'll just be a minute. I'm going to find it.
Give me 2 hours.
Yeah, no. And so it's the same
Yeah.
thing, when you see one of my favorite people to watch and was Kobe Bryant. His all you have to do is look at interviews. He was obviously out there. He would come into the gym 2-3 hours before anybody else, and he would leave the gym 2-3 hours after everybody else, because he knew that nobody was going to out-train him. And he also knew that it was a mind game, that they would know, yo, I went to the gym and he'd been there for 2 hours. And I left the gym and he was still in the
Yeah.
gym.
How on earth can I compete with that?
How can you compete with that?
Yeah.
And so what it really comes down to is, how much time are you willing to put into this? Like people say, I really want to sing. Don't tell me, show me.
Yeah,
You really
show me,
want to
yeah.
sing. Then you've kind of got to do the work. But anyway, let's get back to this journey. So I have to say, I'm always thrilled when a student actually takes a break and comes back for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, because I know that life happens, and I'm never, people often come back and they'll apologize. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, life happens. And sometimes that break is so valuable, because sometimes it's like it clarifies for you what it is you actually want from your voice and from me.
Yeah.
So what was it that kind of brought you back, actually?
Well, yeah. What brought me back is that I finally decided to be more serious about my music and to record my songs. And so in the process, and also investing, it was also a financial commitment to book to book a producer, to book the studio. And of course, you don't want to invest all that money and then show up and your voice is not ready and you are not ready as an artist. And because it's one thing to be a songwriter, and then it's another thing to sing the songs you've written.
Yes, absolutely.
Apparently.
It really is.
For all those who thought it's the same thing, it's not.
It really is not. And it's funny that, I'm working with a lot more singer-songwriters, and it's like you guys are 2 in 1, because the person that wrote the song, it's like, is the person that wrote the song tuned into the person that has to sing the song?
Yeah.
And I find that oftentimes they are not, even though it's the same person.
No, and I agree with you. If I think of the person who wrote the songs that I'm singing now, it's an older version of myself. I'm very grateful to that version of myself for writing the songs, because they carry me and they bring life. But the person who's singing those songs now is not this. No, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Sometimes the person singing the song might be cursing at the person that wrote the song. Like, why did you write this so low? Or why did you write this so whatever you put the word in?
So low for me, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you knew me better, you would have written this differently.
I mean, we've had this conversation, right? Yeah. If I had come to you 6 months ago before going to record the skeleton of the songs in the studio, I could have changed the keys. But I somehow it didn't click for me that I had to come way ahead of time. I thought I would need to come to you for the recording, which was already too late if we think about it. But yeah. But that was the motivation, to be ready for studio, to be ready for the recording time, so that my voice would be at its best. And fun fact, next week I would have been recording the voice, and it's not feasible. I mean, I had to postpone and to take more time, which we also had a conversation about, to accept that it's not going on the timeline that your mind had decided to a few months back.
Yeah, it's, believe it or not, it's actually the reason why I like working as an independent teacher and not in schools, because I find in schools everybody is supposed to know the same thing at the same time, and that's just not how people learn. And I don't like putting that kind of pressure on artists, because artists have enough pressure, you know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it's like when you are an independent artist, an upcoming artist, you don't have the same timelines that, let's say, a Lady Gaga is going to have.
Exactly.
You know,
Nobody's watching their watch like when is the
right.
next song coming up. They don't even know you exist.
Right, right.
Which you have to remind yourself to take the pressure off.
Yes. Because that's actually, to a certain degree, it's a good place to be, because
It is.
then when you put your team together, and when I say team, I mean your vocal coach, your producer, if you have somebody for style. I mean, I happen to do both, but your team of people that are in on
Yeah.
this project, you have time to make sure that everybody is doing their jobs, and they have time to do their jobs in a satisfactory way.
Yeah, yeah, and also
Yeah.
the relationship building. I'm really someone who loves relationship, who loves to invest in relationship. I see relationship for something long term, and so it's good if you've been working with those people a little bit of time before your art comes out.
Yeah.
Because then you also know you have this trust, you have this
Yes.
knowledge that you've got each other's back, right? And it
Absolutely.
gives you confidence to go out in the world and say, this is what I do. This is my baby, my
Yeah.
ugly baby.
Oh, so you saw my other post about how you've got to, what did I say? I say so much stuff sometimes. You've got to sell your ugly baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was from the last podcast. Sell your ugly baby just means you've got to be proud, because
Yeah.
whether other people think your baby's ugly or not is irrelevant. It's your baby. So you've got to sell that baby.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But so I have to say, I'm really proud of how far you've come on an emotional and artistic level, because being able to take that pressure off is a big deal, because we put way too much pressure on ourselves. We destroy ourselves so much as artists. And
Yeah.
it's good for you to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm coming back. I'm going to do this a bit differently.
Yeah.
It is long term, which means it's a slow burn.
It's a slow burn. Yeah.
You know, it's a long term marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
And
so it took that time off
Mm-hmm.
to realize
Yeah.
that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And
Wow.
and that also helped me to be able to take it slower. Because I know I'm going to do this hopefully until my last breath. So,
Right.
you know, I have time. I can take this as slowly as my body needs.
I love that. I think the maturity there is that you're so kind to yourself. And we have to learn to be kind to ourselves, because the rest of the world can be a little bit cruel. We don't need to add to it.
Nope.
So let me ask you this. What could you say to your younger self, that knowing now, 10 years later, is there anything that you would say to your younger artist self?
Yeah, I think I'd tell her, take it easy, baby. You're going to do this for 70, 80, 90 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you don't rock this right now. It doesn't matter if your voice is changing and you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
It's actually it's normal.
Yeah.
You've got this. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep showing up.
Just keep showing up. Oh, I like that. Just keep showing up. Just keep putting the work in and following your joy.
I love that. Yes, thank you for highlighting that, because we talk a lot about putting in the work, and sometimes I find that that is adding pressure, because then I'm like, okay, I have to do it perfectly again, right? I have to put in the hours and the consistency. But if you focus on finding the joy and just showing up again and again and again as often as you can at this time of life, but you just keep showing up and keep looking for the joy.
Keep
I think that also
reps.
it's sustainable, because you'll keep doing your reps, you'll keep having fun, you'll keep enjoying the movement.
Yeah. You know, thank you for saying that, because I don't realize sometimes that I say, you have to work. And I say that because, unfortunately, singers tend to be tend to be a bit on the lazy side, or just not understanding that this requires, it's muscular, so it requires that you revisit this on a daily basis.
Yes.
I know how my voice is if I don't sing for 2 days, but the truth is that rarely happens, because I'm a yapper. I'm always flapping my gums. I'm always singing or talking or something. So this voice is getting used. But I have to be mindful of the culture that I build around my students as it pertains to practice, because I had a horrible relationship with practicing. Horrible. It's not even until recently that I feel better about practicing.
Yeah.
It took me a long time.
And I just want to add that because I mean I have a very close relationship with the word rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to work hard and we have to rest hard. And
Mm-hmm.
one example is I'm really trying to stick with my routine,
Mm-hmm.
practicing so many times a week. But for example, the other week, I really was not able to for different reasons. And what
Mm-hmm.
I did, I just rested. I
Yeah.
rested well and a lot. And when I came back to our class,
Mm-hmm.
I told you I'm not sure where my voice is at because
Sure.
I didn't practice. And I still managed to hit notes that I had
Yeah.
never hit before.
Yeah.
And it just comforted me in my intuition to rest enough and rest
Yeah.
well. So I'm not
Yes.
saying we should not work hard. We should
No.
absolutely work hard because if we don't, we cannot aspire to be vocal athletes. We don't
Right.
have the right to use that word, or
Right.
professional singers. We have to work hard, but we also have to be gentle with ourselves and rest hard enough.
Yes. And if I go back to athleticism as an image, I do CrossFit. And I hadn't been in the gym regularly for over a year, and I went back in January. And so when I went back, my level was like zero. When I say I was the last of the class, I was the last person to finish. So
Yeah.
everybody's clapping, and I'm like, this is crazy because I was always an athletic person as a kid. But, I'm getting up there in age. And the notion of hard work is relative to where you are. And this
True.
is what we don't remember or we don't know. Working hard for somebody who's been singing for 10 years is very different than somebody who's only been singing for 10 days.
Yeah.
They cannot put in the same type of work, and they should not.
Yeah.
So somebody who's been working for 10 days, I literally tell them, I want you to work 15 to 20 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, well, that's not enough. It's like, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Because remember, you're putting in reps. You're learning how to do the
That's
exercise
it.
correctly. You're going to do it wrong. If you do it wrong for 30 minutes, you're actually harming yourself.
Yeah.
So do 15 to 20 minutes. Trust me, the exercises I give you, you're going to be sweating. You're going to be like, oh, this is work. And by the time you get to that, let's say 6-month mark, it could be sooner, obviously, but you'll be able to put in more work. It's not going to cost you the same. So the work that you have to do is relative to how long you've been doing this
Yeah.
and what you're trying to do as well.
Yeah. What you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
What you're trying to achieve. Well, listen,
So
I
good.
have really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
And I know because we enjoy our conversations. We'll have many, many more. But thank you for being the voice of, how should I say this, of the common human that has struggles and gets back up and comes back and does it, and shows people that it's never too late. Just because we had a break doesn't, you needed that break. It was beneficial to you because I see a clarity in you that I didn't see when I first met you.
Fact. Yeah.
All facts.
I needed that break. Yeah, I needed
Yeah.
that break.
Yeah. And also in that time, I've had time to work on being a better teacher as well. So,
Win-win.
it's a win-win. Well, can you tell me, do you have a tentative timeline to when you want your project to come out?
Yes. I'm still hoping for sometime this summer
Okay.
or the fall. We'll see how it goes, but 2024 something has to come out.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that, honestly, based on the work that we've been doing, that sounds more than feasible to me. Because again, you don't want to go into that perfectionism stage either.
No. But if I can release my music by starting summertime, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we'll do everything we can to make sure that happens. Would you like us to? Should I put all of your social information so people can come and check you out?
Yeah, that they can connect because after all, I'm sharing my art because we're all humans and life is hard and life is beautiful and life is meant to be done together. So if you want to connect on social media, I'll be happy to connect. And
Amen to
yeah,
that. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much, Sandrine. I wish you a beautiful weekend, and
you
I
too.
can't wait to see you.
You too. Take care.
I just love chatting with Sandrine, and I love hearing about her artist journey. Even though I work with artists all the time, each journey is so different, and I love seeing how each artist comes to their own conclusions about all the things that we've talked about. Talking about what it's like to practice and dealing with perfectionism. I think some of the key takeaways are how important it is to be kind to yourself. This is a rough journey. I think it's important to allow yourself time off. Sometimes you get to a point where you're trying so hard and you're doing so many things and you're just kind of beating your head against a wall and you have no clear direction. Taking some time off does one thing. It takes the pressure off, and it does another thing. It gives you a bit more mental clarity. You can get a sense for, during your time off, if you actually miss singing or miss the thing that you're doing. And you also have a bit of hindsight where you can look back without the pressure of what your artist is, trying to do. You can look back and say, hey, the things I was trying to do, I was going about them all wrong. And you don't feel so bad about it with a little bit of time. And the truth is, these revelations, they come in different orders. It really is not one size fits all. The revelation that there's a lot of work to be done with a voice teacher or coach before you go into the studio for Sandrine was a big deal. And now we're doing some other things to make sure that her project shows the best of her that is possible. Now, I mentioned earlier in the podcast that I had a disastrous time with my practice time. It's something that I struggled with for a very, very long time, and it's something I hadn't talked about before. But honestly, my practicing was so bad that there were times when I actually lost my voice after only about 10 minutes of practicing. And so I knew something was wrong, and I really had to find something else because, well, by now we all know that we have to practice. But the problem is nobody ever talks about how to practice, how to actually practice. Nobody teaches you that. And so what I did is I took some time and experimented and did some research, and I came up with a practice guide. So I'm going to put all that information in the episode information with my practice guide. It is a 26-page practice guide. And here's what you'll learn. The how, so how to get your practice right. The why, understanding the importance of each practice element. The when and how long to practice. And the what and where. You're also going to get some discussions about the mindset that you have going into your practice and some very special bonuses inside. So if you're interested in picking that up, all you have to do is look at the show notes and you can pick that up. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I really appreciate it. I hope that you enjoyed listening to an up-and-coming artist about her journey. Perhaps you found some things that were valuable for you. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Musically Monique.